Cool Figure TV. Revolutionary salute. Revolutionary salute. Like, share, subscribe. Welcome to the House of Revolution. You know, I'm your humble host. The mean of revolution. The old world wasn't run by humans. What you say? The Watchers ruled everything. Secret bloodlines. Before we get into that, be sure to wipe your feet. That means hit the like button. You in the House of Revolution. Like, share, subscribe, support the platform, y'all. Well, revolution is a way of life, and revolution is for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. I got some very interesting information for y'all. Let's get into the content. Salute.
The mountains on the border between Germany and Austria be off limits to the public if it were just a hill? Why would there be an extensive cave system that is home to over 400 known caves, reaching depths of 1,148 meters, that was all just discovered in 1996? Old world dwarfs inside of a mountain. Are you ready? Who built the caves? Were these caves naturally forming?
If y'all not subscribed to this channel, my lunch break, y'all need to go subscribe to this channel. And on y'all little off time, go watch these videos.
Of course not. And we know this because we are told that the Nazi regime constructed an elaborate network of tunnels and bunkers inside this mountain. Now, I'm going to ask you, did they build them or did they find them? Where the tunnels were designed with high domed roofs, wide floors, and there were valuables found inside. Where only 2 entrances to the tunnels have been unsealed and open to the public today. They're still using this place today, and we all know it. What was found inside this mountain? And we found multiple mountains at this point all over the world that have massive cities, they have buildings, and now we find domed roofs inside of a mountain. I told you we were just getting started. Anything and everything needs to be on the table at this point, where there are legends of Emperor Charlemagne sleeping within the mountain, cared for by dwarf-like creatures. What the heck did they find inside this mountain? And what's still there today that we don't know about? Why do these mountains have massive tunnels? They have buildings, as we've shown. Who is living inside as we speak? What's going on here in this place that we live? What are we being blocked off from? And why are these massive mountains, time and time again, restricted to the public by the military? The deepest and largest cave system in Germany, where it is largely unexplored. Who is still living inside these mountain complexes? Who's in there? Is it just the military, or is there something much more going on inside? The legend may be more real than what we realize, telling us that there are small, powerful, and otherworldly beings said to live deep inside the mountain, pale-skinned, wearing robes or cloaks, and possessing knowledge of time, healing, and energy manipulation. This is everything that we've discussed on this channel, especially in the cathedrals. Is the previous civilization still here, where Charlemagne, who supposedly sleeps inside the mountain until the final battle, could still be in there? And I'm not in the business of dismissing things without looking into it. The place is off limits to the public. So I'm going to dig deeper. Why was the Nazi military so interested in this mountain, where not only is it restricted to the public today, but in 2014, it became even more restricted than ever before, with reports of heightened restrictions, all for preservation yet again, where the locals believe that these measures aim to conceal undisclosed activities or discoveries within the mountain, where somebody that we've all heard about was obsessed with this place. Why would he be so obsessed with a mountain if it was only just a hill, where it was his magic mountain? He called it the Sleeping Dragon and believed that it held mystical power. I wonder why. Did he figure out what was inside that mountain? He believed that the mountain had ties to ancient knowledge and the supernatural, the old world. These figures are depicted on the old world cathedrals. We have seen it all over the world. These are not myths, and they're not just art, as we are told. And this is all in my opinion, of course, and you can believe whatever you want, as always. I'm never going to tell anybody what to think. I'm just sharing what I find. Where he said that the mountain held secrets of the past. Inside, this place that we live is so much more than what we're told. The fact that the military was so interested in this location in Germany, and still is to this day, is telling in itself. And this is when we go even further and find that in 1987, 3 German hikers went hiking on this mountain, where their tent and equipment were found intact, perfectly fine. But then the men were all missing. And then they just reappeared 3 months later on a ship in the middle of the Red Sea that's 2,375 miles away, where even their car was found parked right there at the site with no recollection of the intervening time. By the time that they got back from Egypt, after calling their families from the ship, claiming that they had no recollection of getting there, they, of course, altered their story, saying that they just traveled there. They didn't have a passport, and they didn't have a car, and their tent was still on the mountain. What do you think? I believe that somebody told them to alter their story. It's incredible. And this is not the only time this has happened. This happens all the time, where hikers are constantly reporting experiencing sudden lapses in time while on the mountain. They're losing track of hours and they're blacking out. And they awaken in entirely different locations, showing up in other countries. And I believe that this is happening so much more than we're being told. Documented account, an engineer, a steel construction technician, and his experience at the mountain, I believe, proves that the old world civilization, they still may be here. Wolfgang Stadler, an engineer, he wrote books about his experiences at the mountain. He described encounters with individuals residing within the mountain. People that still think that they're in World War II. This is still going on. They're under some sort of trance, and they're oblivious to the passage of time, showing no sign of aging despite the significant time that's passed. Now, if this place is off limits to the public, how did he get to go in the mountain? And how is he allowed to tell these stories? We hear a lot about crypto, but here's the part most people miss. Crypto was created so you could actually own and control your money. After the 2008 financial crisis, Bitcoin was designed as an alternative to banks. So instead of a bank holding all of your money, delaying transfers, or limiting access, you are in control. And if you've ever had to wait for a transfer to clear, you felt that problem. Fast forward to today. Everybody in the world has heard of crypto, but getting started has felt complicated. That is exactly why I use Rumble Wallet. Actually owning, I do know, is that this place is off limits to the public. We can't just go walking around and go inside the complex. It is off limits. We know that military explorations were conducted within the last 100 years. We also know that a well-known figure stated that this mountain is a sleeping dragon, holding mystical power, and holds secrets of the past, with documented accounts of him referencing Charlemagne, the dwarfs, and the time anomalies. He believed that the mountain had ties to ancient knowledge and the supernatural. This is the old world. If militaries are restricting sites, if governments all over the world are extremely interested, and time again showing us that these are valuable locations for our research, then why in the world would we be dismissing it? They still do not allow us in these sites today. If there are small, powerful beings living deep inside the mountain, described as pale-skinned and robed, holding old world knowledge, old world healing powers, understanding energy manipulation. If these individuals are really here, I want to know about it. I'm not going to be dismissing things just because I've never seen it before or never heard about it in History 101. I want to know the truth, and that starts with asking questions. And that's what we've been doing all along. And I believe there are massive facts in play here. There is something going on in this location that makes me really wonder about other locations that we've already looked into, such as Raven Rock, the Cheyenne Mountain Complex, or even the Hoover Dam. What old world technology has been found? What is really going on inside these mountains? And we see the same thing going on in Iran, where we know that they have mountains too, and things going on inside of them. And we also know that that place, it has been in the news lately, where we are told that this location, They have elaborate networks of tunnels, high domed roofs, and wide floors. What's going on in there? Especially when we see that somebody built their so-called eagle's nest directly across from this mountain, just 6 miles away. He set up his eagle's nest, his mountain residence. You can visit this location today. They even have a restaurant, and it's a tourist attraction. And I'm guessing there are tunnels under there that connect 6 miles away, and it wouldn't shock me at all. Visitors can tour the pumping hall, and of course, some tunnels. Some, meaning that there are more. And you're not going to get in the one that leads to the magic mountain. But we all know that it's there. It has to be. Access to the Eagle's Nest is achieved via Mountain Road, featuring 5 tunnels, a 124-meter-long tunnel leading to a brass-lined elevator that ascends to the building itself. Again, was all of this built, or was all of this found? Telling us that all of this was completed in just 1 year. Crazy. From 1937 to 1938. Are you sure? So-called Magic Mountain, according to a German FOIA request, is restricted to the public. You can't go in there. And there are even recorded denials of SAR imaging. Denials coming from German and Austrian authorities after 2014. Was this 2014 incident a real event? Or was it a stunt to restrict it even further to the public than what it was before? To restrict the use of satellite radar mapping. The use of satellite radar mapping have been blocked all for environmental and historical preservation. Preservation, conservation, protection. 3 words that restrict the public from seeing the truth. Over and over, we've seen this for years now. The exact same words every single time in every country and every topic that we bring up. Preservation, conservation, and protection. The German hikers were on this mountain, camping, car parked, and then without a passport, showed up 2,000 miles away from this mountain in a boat and had no idea how they got there in 1987. You are allowed to go in this mountain in some areas, which I definitely want to do one day. But most of over the 400 caves in this mountain are effectively off limits to the general public. Blocking these caves off due to historical significance or undisclosed activities. Undisclosed activities? Other sections just have barriers and just blocks us off without any explanation at all. And other sections are blocked off as water protection zones or plant conservation regions. I do believe that there is something crazy going on inside this mountain. I believe it's been going on for so much longer than we're all told. And this next part is the clearest giveaway of all. It proves, in my opinion, that we are correct and that there is something going on in this location. It proves that something has been going on here for a very long time. There is an absence of publicly accessible records detailing the annual missing persons cases in Grodig, Austria, and Berchtesgaden, the 2 towns that surround this mountain. These 2 towns, they surround this mountain, and both countries agree, Austria and Germany, that they shouldn't disclose the missing persons cases in these 2 towns. Why? Let's go further. In 2017, Austria reported 10,000 missing people. And Germany, they noted that 1,600 missing minors in 2021. So these countries, they know how to do it. They know how to document these things. Why do they both agree and they both choose not to report the missing people in this location? We know that in 1987, hikers disappeared and then reappeared on a boat thousands of miles away, then told to change their story. Do you think that that was the only time this ever happened? It was documented in contemporary newspapers, but never acknowledged by official public case files. Why not? They deny SAR. So what is going on inside this mountain? I want to know. It's such a weird thing to do in a tourist-heavy area near a location that has seen disappearances in the past. What is going on here? What's going on inside this mountain? Are these legends true? And why was the U.S. Army establishing a significant presence in 1945? Why was the U.S. Army repurposing this location? Why did they maintain operations until 1995, spanning over 50 years? What did they do? What do they know now? And what did they destroy? Other than their facility cornerstone in 2000 to 2001. Do you think you know everything about this place that we live? I believe that we are just getting started. And I believe we are not being told the truth. How many times to this point have we seen that the statues from the old world, they don't have their hands anymore? The stories tell us that the old world, some individuals had 6 fingers and 6 toes. Should we take this further with the first mention of giants with 6 fingers and 6 toes appears in ancient texts, the Bible, and various mythologies, where we have shown so many times that these so-called myths are so much more factual than the mainstream narrative that we have all been told. One of the most famous references comes from the book of 2 Samuel in the Old Testament, which mentions a giant named Ishbi-Benob, who was described as having 6 fingers on each hand and 6 toes on each foot, a descendant of the Nephilim, a race of giants mentioned earlier in Genesis, with statues from the old world exposing the truth, showing the depictions of the past, destroyed so many times, chopping the hands off over and over, chopping the feet off. And when they don't do this, it exposes so much. Just like we saw in episode 109. All of this, in my opinion, all based on my research. You are always free to think whatever you'd like. I've said this since the very beginning. That being said, let's keep going.
On Memorial Day weekend 2026, the world of sport will change forever.
And there was yet a battle in Gath, where was a man of great stature that had on every hand 6 fingers, and on every foot 6 toes, 4 and 20 in number, meaning 24 fingers and toes in total. And he was also born to the giant. All of this is a myth. Are you sure? With 7 full books documented as being removed from the Protestant Bible. 7 full books removed, along with additional parts of other books, such as Esther and Daniel, all excluded. And we all know that it wasn't just 7. What was being removed changed. I'm not speaking to the 7 books that were removed. I am so much more interested in if there was more than 7 at this point. I believe that this book, the Bible, is directly from the old world, telling all of us, admitting that this incredible book has been altered. So let's turn this up a notch. Polydactyly is the condition of having extra fingers or toes. A condition? Or is this the giants, the Nephilim from the old world, the previous civilization? Egypt, where some mummies found in high-status tombs were reported to have extra digits. Finding mummies with extra digits in Thebes, the ancient capital of Egypt. Archaeologists discovered a tomb. Was it just one? You tell me. A tomb belonging to a royal or high-ranking individual. The Nephilim? I believe so. The tomb contained mummified remains with unusual characteristics, including extra fingers and extra toes. This is unbelievable. Is this what we are all being blocked off from? That the Nephilim were the leaders of the old world? Does the extra finger, the extra toe, does this expose that? And this is why the statues of all of them are all removed today. I believe that this is the case. Like I've said since the beginning, I don't believe that this is thousands of years ago. I believe that this was only a few hundred years ago. And it's getting clearer and clearer. Mummies from the Valley of the Kings in Egypt, which were discovered in our timeline yet again, just like it is every single time. The late 19th and early 20th centuries have been examined for unusual traits like polydactyly, 6 fingers 6 toes, with modern archaeological excavations reporting finding remains of individuals with extra digits in the tombs. I believe that we fully understand why these statues of the past are deliberately destroyed, chopping the heads, the hands, and the feet off of all of them perfectly with a saw all over the world, because we all know that this isn't just in Egypt. The mound builders of North America, specifically Ohio, Illinois, and the Mississippi River Valley. This research is incredible, and it all fits together over and over like a puzzle. I've said this for so long. It feels so much like a game. It all begins to tell a story, an incredible story, the true history, while at the same time exposing the false narrative. In episode 45, we went on top of the Cahokia Mounds to this location in southern Illinois, USA, that archaeologists have uncovered hundreds of human burials, with hundreds more burials being discovered across the other mounds. And the exact numbers vary due to not completing the excavation. They stopped excavating the site. We know this from episode 111. And we only needed to wait 2 more weeks to put the next puzzle piece together for this location. Not only were these people found underneath this supposed dirt pile that we all know is a temple covered by grass, but we find something incredible about these people that are still here at this site today. And I believe that we've found the reason that they stopped digging, all to preserve their narrative. The Cahokia Mounds, one of the largest sites in the Americas that we found so far, has yielded numerous burial mounds and remains, with some reports, though not extensively documented, of course. These reports documented that there are skeletons buried at the Cahokia Mounds with extra digits, telling all of us that this Mississippian culture viewed these individuals with extra digits, extra fingers and extra toes, as possessing special significance or power. We have just exposed that the Nephilim were in Illinois, USA, and it's looking like they're still possibly buried there today, 2 feet underneath the dirt, like we have shown. The mounds at Cahokia were used for ceremonial and burial purposes. We have also shown they were for sacrificial purposes, showing that we obviously don't know what the Nephilim were up to. Possibly not great things. With some of the skeletons found associated with elite figures, just like we saw in Egypt, indicating that polydactyly was seen as a sign of strength or divinity. You're not seeing these individuals buried with a chisel next to them. These individuals with 6 fingers and 6 toes, they weren't found with a rake next to them. They weren't off making pottery. These were the leaders. They were in charge. And I believe that we've fully exposed this. And it all started with having open eyes, seeing that they would chop the hands off of the statues, understanding that the statues that we all see today are actually depictions of the past and not just myth. And then that evolved into seeing that their hands and feet were also removed perfectly over and over. And now we're finding evidence that they have found the leaders of the past, the leaders of the old world. 6 fingers, 6 toes, and they were giants. And they are being hidden from us today, telling us that they are preserving the site when they are just preserving their narrative. Just like we saw in 1967. They found these individuals buried, mass graves, and then they stopped in 1971. It's very clear at this point that the land that we all live on is filled with such a different story than what we have all been told. A controlled narrative, a molded one, to fit into this ridiculous timeline that we've all been given. Understanding that a giant race was here, and they had 6 fingers and 6 toes. A race that is documented. These individuals have been found, and we know their locations. And trust me, we are just getting started. There are so many more. The Nephilim explains so much about the old world, and it opens up a brand new door. It possibly explains how things were actually constructed. A much more logical explanation for the pyramids of Giza is that there were actually bigger people here. It would just make a lot more sense that bigger people with more fingers and more toes with more knowledge of this place that we live, built this. This shows that constructing the Milan Cathedral, the Cologne Cathedral, with a donkey and a chisel, with no lights on, dirt roads, and no toilet paper until the 1800s doesn't make logical sense. This story is done. The history that we've all been told is in the past. It is now a myth, especially when we go to Ohio, the Adena Mound, located in Adams County, USA, where they excavated the burial site, and it revealed the remains of individuals with extra digits. Elite status yet again, where the Cherokee called them the Moon People. The Utes and the Paiutes spoke of a hideous race of cannibals, 10 feet tall, living in caves. Are these caves, or are these tunnels? And the Choctaw also have an account of the race of giants that first colonized the Ohio Valley. This is all in the USA. Cushman then recounts the discovery in 1880 at a burial mound near Plano, Texas, of human bones of enormous size. The jawbones so large as to slip over the face of a man with ease, with many historians speculating that they were the builders of the Adena Mounds, the place that they found the six-finger, six-toe individuals. Multiple sources, all connecting back to this location. The Cherokee, calling them the Moon People. I've had so many requests asking me to go into the Cherokee and do some research. Well, here we go. According to the Cherokee stories, the Moon People are described as large, powerful beings who were considered giants with extraordinary abilities. These Moon People, which I believe are the Nephilim, were said to ascend towards the moon, where they continued to watch over the earth. The Watchers. We are connecting massive dots today. Yes, the Watchers. These are the parents of the Nephilim in the Bible. In the Bible, the Watchers were angels that were sent to earth to watch over the humans. Then they fell in love with the women and had children with them. The children were the Nephilim, the offspring. And these Nephilim were described as savage giants that endangered humanity. The Moon People in Cherokee stories then ascended towards the moon to continue watching over the earth, often seen as ancient guardians of the world, giants, suggesting that the giants were so powerful that they could no longer remain on earth and were sent back to the moon. And then we find them here, buried. And in my opinion, this is proof of their existence. Finding the six fingers, the six toes, jaws that could go over a human head, and then not giving us any photographs of them, and just relying on written reports and sketches. We all know that we were given the camera back in the 1800s. So when they found them in the 1970s at the Cahokia Mounds in southern Illinois, this would not have been an issue to take a picture of it, telling us that photographic techniques were not as advanced or commonly used in archaeological practice. This is a bunch of nonsense, an excuse to keep these findings hidden and out of the mainstream narrative. This is exactly why they stopped excavating the site in 1971. This is unbelievable. Local legends describe these individuals as giants or people of great power. In several mounds, the archaeologists uncovered skeletons with 6 fingers on each hand and 6 on each foot. The individuals appeared to be of large size. Again, we see the depictions all over the world. They don't design the entire thing perfectly and then accidentally put an extra finger on both hands. That's not what happened. This was done on purpose. So when someone has polydactyly, this can mean that they have 6 fingers on one hand and the other hand has 5 fingers and both feet have 5 toes. It could also mean that both hands have 6 fingers and both feet have 6 toes. So to be more specific, and attacked us even further. We have to understand that we only want to research the instances where it's 6 fingers and 6 toes on both hands and both feet. This is polydactyly, but it is more specifically called hexadactyly. And hexadactyly means they have 6 fingers and 6 toes on both hands and both feet. And what I find extremely interesting is that people are still born with this today. It's extremely rare, with 1 in 1 million births, or only 140 people a year worldwide. They are born with this. So when we see it all over the world, the powerful giant old world figures in every continent, and they are being discovered as the leaders. This is not a common trait today at all. And there were less people back then, we are told. Yet there are so many instances where people have 6 fingers and 6 toes, and they are the leaders, and they are also giants, showing that this group, in my opinion, this is the Nephilim, they are gone. And there were so many more of them here in the past being around 500 years ago, in my opinion. I personally believe that this group did leave, with some dying from the catastrophic event that took place, the event that melted buildings, the event that covered this place with mud. But I also believe that their DNA lives on, a very small amount. I believe these 140 people per year, they might just have traces of this dominant trait. And so many times we saw that the head, the arms, the hands and the feet were removed from the depictions of our true past, the old world statues. And we see they are so deliberately removed, a perfect cut over and over. We always speculated that it was hiding more. And I believe today that we have fully exposed what it was hiding all along. Hiding that the Nephilim were here and extremely involved in the way that things were done. The leaders in every continent, I believe that we have opened up a brand new door that explains so much more about where we are. And I will never look at a statue without a head, without its feet, and without its hands the same ever again. One thing we can't overlook is how these traits, 6 fingers, 6 toes, and towering size, weren't just physical. They symbolize something so much deeper: power, or even a connection to forces beyond this world, as we were told with the moon people, or the Watchers. Across so many cultures, these individuals weren't just leaders. They were gods, warriors, and builders. Their influence shaped everything, including the massive architecture that's still here today. What if the missing hands and feet on these statues weren't just about hiding the truth, but also about erasing a lineage, erasing who once ruled and what they were capable of? It's not just about what's missing. It's about what they don't want us to see. This isn't just history we're uncovering. It's a blueprint to understanding what they don't want us to know. The Nephilim were here, and that changes everything. Do you remember when we went to Sardinia, Italy, an island in the middle of the Mediterranean Sea, an island that we know the old world civilization lived? Today, we are going back for more. We have located one of the weirdest sites in the world, an old world burial site, a necropolis. And I believe that we have found the clearest evidence to this point that the group that is controlling the mainstream history, they went in there and removed the old world people from the site. And I believe we know exactly why. We found the giant statues in Sardinia in episode 103. And now today, we are told that the rectangular burial chambers are large enough to accommodate multiple bodies, when we all know that there was only one body per chamber. These chambers measure 6 to 12 feet in length. 12 feet. Giants. And like we have seen so many times now, these giants most likely had extra digits. The 6 fingers, the 6 toes that we have shown multiple times now. In the 19th and 20th centuries, yet again, over and over, our timeline, our current civilization. The necropolis faced significant disruption due to industrial quarrying and urban expansion, where this activity destroyed many of the tombs and would have disturbed or removed any remaining remains. This is a deliberate attack on our true history 100%. We can clearly see that they located the bodies all over this site and purposely removed them from our timeline. The problem is that they didn't fill the holes in. And now we can clearly see what they've done. Archaeological reports from earlier excavations have documented the presence of skeletal remains. All of this was found, or as they say, rediscovered in the 1800s during military construction activities where it was accidentally unearthed. Do you really believe this still? It was accidentally found in our timeline yet again? Or did they know what they were doing during a military activity? Were the first studies conducted by Domenico Lovisato in the 1880s, and never before this. The initial findings in the 1800s, the excavation found skeletal remains in the tombs. They found the previous civilization in the 1880s, and they admit this. Buried in every single one of these, where the tombs were designed to house bodies. And then they give us our favorite discovery of all time, the pottery. They give us the pottery again. This is amazing. Like I've said before, if they didn't give me the pottery, I think I'd lose my mind. This is the most incredible thing about the story. I love it when they give me the pottery. Thank you so much, narrator. I love the pottery. It completes your incredible, stupid story.
You good? I'm good.
We hear a lot about crypto, but here's the part most people miss. Crypto was created so you could actually own and control your money. After the 2000 incredible teacups of the past, with many of the skeletal remains that they found in the 1880s, of course, being lost. Just lost. Can you believe this? Just losing these skeletons. Do you still believe these stories that you've been told? Can you see how they are controlled and molded to fit the mainstream narrative and hide our true past, the previous civilization, hiding it over and over, taking it out of our view, literally taking it out of the ground and moving it somewhere else, destroying it all over the world, hiding an advanced previous civilization that was here before us, a much different story than what we've all been told, telling us that since 1880, the bones just decayed. No, grave robbers, the looters disturbed the tombs. This is all just the finders, in my opinion. We have seen the looters in every narrative. We know that the looters were the same group that found the site. These are the same people writing the narrative. They are removing both remains and artifacts. And then the urban development that just wiped out the rest, obliterating any remaining remains. What did they find here since the 1880s? Obviously something incredible, something that they didn't want us to see. And then they set up things like this. This is the pottery that they found, and they couldn't even stand it up properly. This is embarrassing that we all believed that this is actually what was found at the site. We all know now that they just made this pottery in a warehouse and then put some dirt on it and put it in a cage and said it was from thousands of years ago, so that we would all say, wow, the people of the past were so primitive. They weren't advanced at all. So pathetic. And then we would never ask another question about what was really found at the site. We have so many of these burials, and then right next to it, we have this structure that looks like something that's been melted and has a door that you can enter and go deeper into. There's an arch over here on the side with some sections, of course, off limits to you and me, all to preserve their narrative. Preservation. The Necropolis opened to the public partially, as we just showed, in May 2014. meaning that it was fully off limits to the public for over 130 years, dating back to the 1880s when they found it, and originally covered an area of about 200 acres, meaning that this entire site was, and possibly still is, covered with the old world bodies right underneath everybody's houses right here. Remember how many times to this point that we have been told that everything was found in the 18 and 1900s. So when we go just 1 mile away and see the Cagliari Cathedral and read the narrative that it was built in the 13th century and obtained cathedral status in the year 1258, not 1257 and not 1259, but exactly 1258. We know that this is just ridiculous at this point, pinning down the date from 767 years ago. Even their AI system agrees with us. I went through a long conversation with it, finally got it to tell us the truth. Here it is. Yes, I agree with you. It is entirely possible that the 1258 date is speculative or based on incomplete evidence, especially since no primary sources or widely recognized public records have been directly cited to verify it. There is no evidence that this place was ever constructed in the year 1258. This date is made up with zero evidence provided, and we all just believed it for years. We sat in those seats, and they told us 1258 is the year that it obtained cathedral status. This is the year, and you're going to believe it. And we did, until now. It even goes on to tell us we are right. Without tangible evidence, this date remains unproven. The history that we are told is complete nonsense. It's made up. And this is coming straight from their system, their AI. They even try to give us this ridiculous story that in 1702, they began demolishing the facade and then rebuilt it and changed it to the Baroque style. And then in the 20th century, the Baroque style just went out of style, and they just decided, let's demolish that as well. This is insane. This is the original building. There were 0 remodels. The only thing that may have happened is the demolition. There were no improvements made to this palace. This building is incredible. Remember, we were told the necropolis originally spanned 200 acres. I think at this point, we all know that it's bigger than that, and most likely goes underneath this cathedral. And what do we know about bodies being buried underneath churches at this point? We have spent hours. We have documented evidence to this point on this topic. Episode 72, episode 78, and episode 92 are great places to start. Do we also remember episode 112? When I said all of Cyprus was one massive necropolis, it isn't just a small necropolis over here and another one over there. All of them are connected. They are all one. And to tie all of this together today, where we go back to the beginning, the Chalkandi tombs, where we found these giant tombs with incredible designs all over them. You would think that these would be the only ones in the world. You would think that this would be a once-off. When we only have to travel 25 miles away yet again, and we find even more, showing that this is all connected. This entire area is connected, not just above ground, but also below, showing that, in my opinion, this is a massive burial site right here in Pakistan with a much deeper meaning, where there is an admission. We are told what this is, dating back to at least the 13th century. I believe it is the same exact thing going on right here in Sardinia, Italy, especially when we read bodies are buried under Cagliari Cathedral, 1 mile away from the massive necropolis. 1 mile. You have bodies under this cathedral. Remember when everybody used to ask, where did this incredible previous civilization go? They would all ask, where are they? I think we all know now. And it is all over the world, exactly like we've shown. Places with made-up stories about the building, with bodies buried underneath the floors, massive necropolises within a mile. And if anybody can get inside this cathedral and send me a picture on X, who is at the top of this thing? We have a bunch of angels. And then take a look at this individual right here on the top. It looks like a skeleton's head. And is this guy wearing a crown? What in the world is going on here? Let's zoom in on it. Okay, that is definitely a skull. This is crazy. Just knowing what we know about what is underneath the ground in this entire location. A bunch of dead people. We'll come back to this in a minute. First, check this room out. Look at the architecture. There's angels all over this place. Going back to episode 75, episode 91, showing that the angels helped build the old world. Very interesting, and a ton of evidence of this. Right outside, we see griffins on the wall of one of these buildings. So that's on this building to the right, the Piazza Palazzo. Now let's get back to this room. Here's the angel, and let's spin the camera around here. And let's read exactly what this thing right above the door says. A cathedral with bodies buried underneath it. Let's read this. Inscribed on the most ancient marbles was dedicated to Saint Lucifer, Archbishop of Cagliari. His sacred remains were discovered and extracted from the earth, and they were placed here to honor the memory of this church's sanctity and its primate. They are revealed to the world and dedicated to God in the most sacred manner. Dedicated to Saint Lucifer. And then finding his remains and placing them there in the church. What the heck are we reading? And then we see this individual at the top. Being at the top normally means that you are in charge. This individual at the top is a powerful individual with a skull head and a crown. What happened here? I have a feeling that we are far from being done with this location. There are angels all over the place, a palace, and Saint Lucifer being engraved into the wall. I do not believe the story that we've all been told about this place is the full story. Who else is with me on that? I think there's a lot missing and a lot more to come. And this is when we are told that this depiction is in fact a depiction of Saint Lucifer. Saint Lucifer is in charge of the church, a church that's on top of the dead. What history are we not all being told? What actually happened here? What happened here where we all live? What may still be happening here? And we are totally in the dark about it. Saint Lucifer's Cathedral in the middle of the Mediterranean Sea on top of a massive necropolis. And we are told right above the door that he's buried there. It's also one thing to have one building, but we have found another, the Chapel of Saint Lucifer. And take a look how close all of this is together. Right here, we have the Chapel of Saint Lucifer. And then right next to it, we have the cathedral with the depiction of Saint Lucifer looking pretty dead. And then we keep going, and again, all right next to each other, we have the necropolis that ranges for at least 200 acres that we are told of, and most likely connects to all of these buildings. It is one of the weirdest locations in the world for sure, without a doubt. We are told that this church of Saint Lucifer was used as a necropolis. Remember, a necropolis is a burial site, especially a large one, belonging to an ancient city, the old world. The crypt specifically excavated among these relics found were those attributed to Saint Saturninus as well as Saint Lucifer. So we just found that Saint Saturn and Saint Lucifer were buried together right here in Sardinia, Italy. Do you understand the significance of this? We were told earlier that this cathedral is a Roman Catholic cathedral. In Roman mythology, where the myths are looking less and less like myths now. If you want me to go deeper into this in the future, let me know in the comments. What an incredible location that we have found. Very interesting characters from the old world found, and the depictions of them are in the art, and they are shocking. All of this is in the middle of the sea.
When we hear this, the biblical text or the Enoch text, what are we being told here? We're being told that these people, and I do mean people, came from the sky down. They descended from the sky down to the earth. They were the watchers. They would watch over humanity. In some ways, they were forbidden to engage humanity. Some of them were forbidden to actually engage. In other words, to directly interact or interfere. It was against the rules. They actually had something called a prime directive, the same kind of prime directive you see that they utilize that same term in Star Trek. In the Star Trek TV series, since it came out in 1960 all the way till now, they have a prime directive in which they cannot directly engage or interact with any civilization that's pre-warp. If that civilization is pre-warp and they're going to actually go down to the surface of that planet, then they have to pretend like they're part of that culture. They have to pretend like they fit in, like they're not really aliens or from space. And they can't alter or change or give them any technology in any way, shape, or form. It's forbidden, literally forbidden. Well, they got that information from the ancient tablets. And the Watchers descended to Earth because they were attracted to human women. Now, that's not me saying that. That's in the Book of Enoch. That's the ancestors saying this. They were attracted to human women. And this group of angels was led by Zemaziah and Azazel. Zemaziah and Azazel were the two chiefs or leaders of this particular crew of these watchers. And they decided, you know what? These girls look pretty damn good. We're going to take some human wives. Now, it's interesting that when you read the Enuma Elish or the Epic of Atrahasis, you discover these beings in there. They call them the Igigi. And these Igigi people are these Anunnaki workers. They're not slaves, but they're the working class. In other words, if I own a construction company, I'm the boss, then I have a master architect, and underneath that I have a foreman, and then underneath the foreman I have workers who go out and actually do the labor to build the product or the house. You see, it's a structure, it's a system. Well, these Igigi, they said the same exact thing in the Epic of Atrahasis. They said, we want to get some of these human women. We don't have no women over here. They were working, according to them, they were working on Mars. And they were complaining about the conditions. And they said, you're working us like we're slaves, or we're not slaves. And not to mention, we want to take some of these women back with us. So in two different texts from two different time periods, we find the same story. And so they began families. So they basically breached heavenly boundaries and all the rules that were set before them to not interact, not engage, and definitely not have sex with human beings. Not that they only have sex, but they said, you know what, we're going to keep these. We're going to make them our wives. And so then they started doing something again that was against the prime directive. They started teaching forbidden knowledge. I didn't say that. The Book of Enoch says that. And the fallen angels impart various types of knowledge and skills that were previously unknown to mankind. which had a profound and often detrimental impact on human societies. These beings, not only did they come down for the good loving of the woman, the human woman, but they also then violated another law and began to engage mankind and give us the forbidden knowledge. And why was it forbidden? It was forbidden because, why? It was forbidden because this information that they were giving to humans was going to expedite our advancement technologically. And when you advance your technological prowess, all of a sudden, there's room for extreme detriment to that civilization. When you take a civilization that isn't maturing enough spiritually and give them advanced technology, turn them into a technocratic civilization, they can potentially destroy themselves. And that's where we are right now.
If you ever do want to prevent yourself and your private information from being out there on the internet all willy-nilly, and you want to protect your privacy online, then I highly recommend you take a look into Aura, because it is genuinely concerning how much of our private information is just out there right now. And we know this from people's locations being leaked, the spam phone calls, the spam text messages, emails for things you never signed up for. It's too much. However, with Aura, this all comes to an end. It's a service that protects all of your information online and does the work of a lot of different apps all in one. They offer spam call protection, identity theft protection, financial fraud protection. It's a VPN, it's a password manager. It does so much all under one app that is nationally recognized and respected.
Ten out of 10 friends say you have to go to that new place, which you have 0 time.
We're going to go in for a little while about the Book of Enoch. Make sure you guys click that like button so we can get the algorithm. Click the like button. And also, please, if you can, share the video. Okay, share the video, click the like button. I'm going to be talking about the Book of Enoch tonight. All right, the Book of Enoch. I'll describe to you who Enoch was and everything else. If you look into the dogma of the Christian belief system, they praise Enoch for being so holy and so so good to God that he was taken away and straight to heaven. He didn't have to die. He went straight into heaven and he never came back. That's what they preach to you, right? They tell you that this guy was just, a real good guy, and he did everything that God wanted, and he was without sin, and he was so incredible that, hey, just take him straight to heaven. Just bypass the whole death process. Just go ahead and take him to heaven. And they'll teach you that in Sunday school, right? And so that's the story that you get, but that's not the actual true story. Not the true story. It's quite interesting that Enoch is highly, highly, highly revered in the biblical text. However, his own book, look at all this information in here, was left out of the Bible. Now, why do you think that is? Why do you think Enoch's text was left out of the canonized Bible? Well, I'll tell you why. Because it's talking about these people behind me. That's why. The Book of Enoch. It's an ancient Jewish religious text traditionally ascribed to Enoch, the great-grandfather of Noah. Now, who is Noah? We know now, because I've been reading the Epic of Gilgamesh, that Noah is actually Ziusudra. Okay? That's his real name, Ziusudra, before it was converted to the name of Noah in more recent texts. His original name is Ziusudra, or even in some, depending on which version of the Epic of Gilgamesh, Akkadian or Babylonian, it could be Utnapishtim. Okay? Ziusudra is the most commonly known name, but Enoch is the great-grandfather of the person that was actually given the instructions on how to build a ship to be saved from the flood. Now, this ship that he actually built, we discover in the Sumerian tablets, is not a gigantic boat like what they have been preaching to you in Sunday school. He was given the instructions, and how do I know this? Well, the tablet is actually in the British Museum. He was given the instructions on how to build a gigantic round disc submersible, or maybe it flew, I don't know. We don't know if he knows. And it was cut up into sections like a pie on the inside. And he was told to put his local flora and fauna and his local livestock in that disc. He never built a gigantic ship. Not once did he build a ship. That is false information. Not once did 2 parakeets and 2 lions and 2 deer and 2 cockroaches and 2 fleas and 2 ticks and all this come on the boat. Didn't happen, okay? I'm just telling you right now, it did not happen. He was literally told to get his local flora and fauna and his local livestock and take on this disc that was cut up into sections like a pie on the inside, but it was a sealed disc, like a saucer, okay? That's what he was in. And we know this for an absolute fact now. There's no way to get around it. There's absolutely no way to get around it. And, they show in the movies, they got, that one movie, that Noah movie, they got, every kind of animal and you got 2 flies and, I mean, come on, guys. 2 piranha. I mean, get out of here. It didn't happen, okay? It just didn't happen. Let's get into the real knowledge, all right? Let's just drop the fairy tales and get to the real knowledge. So Enoch is the great-grandfather. Now, what's important here is we're aligning a man who has directly interacted with these advanced beings. Now we know his own descendant also interacted with these advanced beings, as he was given the actual instructions on how to build this from Ea Enki, one of these Anunnaki people. Enki saved him and his family's life by teaching him how to build this particular disc-shaped floating device, whatever you want to call it, right? This DNA bank, if maybe it was that. But we see a direct connection between Enoch and Ziusudra, who's actually now called Noah in more modern texts, because the Bible is New Age information, not Old Age, it's New Age. So it's interesting that connection, that lineage is there. 2 people, same bloodline, both being directly engaged by these beings. I can remember being a kid in elementary school having to hide underneath my work desk. They would make us go underneath the work desk to do practice for if a nuclear bomb went off, as if my work desk was going to protect me from a nuclear blast. So you go underneath the desk and you ball up like you're an embryo underneath your desk in case a nuclear blast goes off. You know, that was the Cold War. So I grew up during the Cold War era, 70s and 80s, right? The tech is still there. There are literally tens of thousands of nukes on this planet right now today, tens of thousands of them. And the sad part is they're not on this planet to protect us from an outside invader. They're on this planet to destroy us while we're still on the planet. We haven't even left the planet. We can't even escape. It's here to destroy us while we're standing on the ground. Can you imagine being an advanced alien race flying by this planet and you use your scanners and oh man, they've learned how to split the atom. Oh, they've got an arsenal down there. Wow, they're really ready to protect themselves. Oh wait, let me hack these and check the trajectory of these intercontinental ballistic missiles that they've created. Oh my goodness, they're set to blow up their own selves while they're on the same planet. Don't stop here. This is a ghetto. It's a ghetto. Come on, man. And so now what do we have that, besides the nukes, now we have other types of weapons, digital weapons, right? We haven't even began to put any type of restraint on the release of the amount of AI and robotics that's going on. I love the AI stuff in robotics. I think it can help mankind significantly. But I think in the way it's being released, not too safe. I just read an article that the US military at DARPA, or the DARPA program for the US military, has literally just developed the very first fighter jet that runs purely on AI and put it into a dogfight. They put it into a dogfight. So it's a fly-by-wire fighter jet, which means it's on the grid. We're talking about Skynet now, but Skynet with a consciousness. Isn't that the movie Terminator? Didn't we already watch that movie Terminator? We didn't learn anything from the Hollywood movie. It was a documentary, and now we're living it in real time. We got to be careful. All this tech that we keep getting, way before we are consciously ready to even handle it. We're not spiritually ready to handle a lot of this technology. During the full moon, which is totally predictable, do you know that police stations ramp up and have more policemen on staff that night? And the emergency room and hospitals have more staff that night on a full moon? Do you know why? Because on full moons, there's going to be more activity with crime and with injuries, either stemming from crime or other, maybe more car accidents, whatever, on the night of full moon. Full moons directly affect human consciousness, directly. And so you have the consequences of all these teachings that these beings did. I don't call them angels because they're not angels in my book. The knowledge imparted by the watchers leads to increased sinfulness and corruption among humanity, according to the Book of Enoch. The text portrays this dissemination of forbidden knowledge as one of the key factors leading to the moral decay and the eventual decision of God to bring about the great flood in the form of a divine retribution. Now think about this for a minute. Let's go. We got to have a conversation.
When it comes to weight loss meds, folks will rope you in with one prize.
Then hidden fees start coming out the woodwork.
I'm almighty. I'm all knowledgeable. I'm all knowing. I'm Alpha and Omega. I'm the beginning and the end. I think and things come into existence. I breathe and wind blows and I snap my fingers and I create multiverses and all this good stuff. And I got a couple of bad apples that just don't want to listen to what I have to say. So they break my rules and they go to this planet Earth and they start teaching people how to, do things, and gave them a little bit too much knowledge. And because of this knowledge, they start acting up too. You know what? Instead of me going down there and setting everything straight and doing some real teachings, doing some workshops, I think I just, go ahead and wash the whole planet away. Just flood it. Just kill everybody. Just kill as many people as I possibly can, and see if I can start over like a fresh slate, because I'm God, and it'd be just too easy for me to snap my fingers or go down there and teach. So I think what I will do is I'll just destroy and kill everybody. Women, children, everybody. Just kill them all. Come on, man. Stop it. Stop it. Come on. It's ridiculous. That's why I'm laughing. And it's ridiculous. So do all the pastors listening to me right now. It's an absolute farce. It's a farce, because you're saying in one moment this being is so powerful it can control everything with a single thought and a snap of a finger or one spoken word. And on the other hand, the being is so helpless that the best it can do is hurl a rock into the planet and hope that floods the planet and kills everybody. Come on, man. Which one is it? Is the being all powerful, all knowing, all knowledgeable? Or is he, always a man, or is he weak and only has enough power to do a couple things like kill people? Because when you read this Bible, there's one thing that's guaranteed you'll find out when you go through this Bible like I have. God kills over 3 million people in the Bible. The devil kills nobody. He kills nobody. Satan kills nobody. God kills 3 million. Think about that. That's why in the book of Isaiah, God says, let me read the exact verse for you. That way you know what? I know y'all think I'd be playing when I be talking, when giving you guys these verses. Okay? I'm going to give you the exact verse. It's in Isaiah. This is funny. Isaiah 45:7. That's where you're going. God says, I create the good and I create the evil. Do what I saith the Lord. He didn't say Satan made the evil. He didn't say, oh, that doggone Satan, he's creating all the evil in the world. He didn't say that. He didn't say that. He literally said, I create the good and I create the evil. And you know what? He damn right, because he killed 3 million people in that Bible. The best he can do is hurl a rock at the planet and try to kill as many as he possibly can. It's always a he, by the way. It's always amazing that it's always a dude, right? It's always a dude. It's always a dude. I don't know. To me, God is a frequency. It's our job to tune in. So that's what happens. Pretty interesting, right? The punishment to the watchers is, as the result of their actions, the watchers are judged by the archangels and are subjected to severe punishments. They are bound and cast into the abyss, a form of imprisonment and torment, as a penalty for their disobedience and negative impact on humanity. So the humans got to die in the flood, but these people, they don't die. They just get kind of bound into some kind of a chamber where they can't get out. They're not killed. They're put into some kind of prison. But the people, they got to suffer and drown to death, babies and all.
If you're conservative using big tech that donates to leftist causes, you might be a click conformer. Your values shouldn't end at the search bar. Switch to Result Hunter. Patriotic alternative, putting freedom before Silicon Valley. Don't be a click conformer.
All right. This is what they're telling you. And like I said, if you really go into the text, you discover something very interesting, that Enoch wasn't taken by God. He was taken by people. And he wasn't just taken once, he was taken more than once. You're taught in Bible study that he was taken to heaven on a chariot, never to return again. He was taken straight to heaven. He bypassed death. Not according to the Book of Enoch, where he actually has a conversation with the beings that are going to take him on this trip to teach him knowledge. This teaching is approved, and this trip is actually approved. And it's given a set day that they're going to leave on this trip. He even gets his affairs in order and has his sons prepared for the day that he's going to leave. In the Book of Enoch, the narrative of Enoch being taken into the sky or the heavens is one of the key elements of the text. The ascension is portrayed as an extraordinary event where Enoch is granted divine visions and insights, setting the stage for the detailed revelations that follow in the book. In his ascension to heaven, Enoch's ascension is described across several passages in the Book of Enoch. He is taken up into the heavens multiple times, each providing different experiences and revelations. In other words, different things he's being taught, different knowledge that he's been given on different trips, multiple, not even double, but multiple means more than two. In his initial ascension, Enoch describes how he was taken up into the heavens on the clouds, and the wind in the sky bore him aloft. Well, that sounds quite a bit like flying in some type of a vessel. The ascension is often seen in his initial introduction into the celestial realms, and during this time, he visits various places in the heavens and earth, including the places where the heavenly bodies, stars, sun, and moon, are regulated. Oh, he's in outer space, guys. One of the earliest accounts of a planned alien abduction. Visions of the heavens. As Enoch ascends, he is shown the treasures of the stars and the thunder. Among other secretive and sacred places of the heavens, he witnessed the workings of the natural world from a divine perspective. So he's looking at the earth from atop, and he describes it as a giant ball. Understanding the operation of the cosmos, the weather patterns, and other natural phenomena from above, looking down on the planet. He's seeing the clouds from the other side. See, this isn't a story about some heavenly father, a sky daddy with a magic wand, whisking away a good human into heaven. It's a story of advanced beings with advanced technology that's capable of space travel, taking a man from the earth into space and teaching him things. This is why the Book of Enoch is not in the Bible. Then you have the revelation of secrets. Throughout his heavenly journey, Enoch is also shown secrets that are not known to other humans. He's given forbidden knowledge. These include ultimate judgments of the angels and humans, hidden paths of the stars. He's given star maps and the storehouses of life and rain, which are meant to explain both cosmic and earthly operations from a divine standpoint. He's given the information and knowledge how to predict weather patterns on earth. That's what the Book of Enoch is all about. These are the facts. Why am I doing this? Because I know most people will never get a chance to go through this. But if you do, you'll find everything I'm talking about is right in this book, the Book of Enoch. One of the most revered people in the biblical text, whose book was omitted by the Council of Nicaea. Why? We don't want to tell them about these aliens taking people into space and teaching them how to kill each other, make weapons, and all of this, and how they lusted after our women. No. Let's keep that on the outside. Let's keep it on the outside. That's why. You know, the thing about knowledge is it has no power. Only if you apply it, it has power. The application of knowledge is power, but knowledge alone is not power. So now that you've got some knowledge, right? Now that you have some knowledge, what are you going to do with it? You have it in here, but if it stays in there, it's like putting your talents underneath a rock. Just like that parable in the Bible. Oh yeah, I read the Bible. Don't get, I got my Bible right here. See, I had this Bible since, what's the original date I had this? I got this Bible in 1998. 1998. And it kept it in great condition considering how much I've gone through it. Don't put your talents underneath the rock. See, I'm intelligent because I know how to take good information from this book. I can take good information from the Quran. I can take good information from the Apocrypha. I can take good information from the Enuma Elish. I can take good information from the Bhagavad Gita. I can take good information from the Sefer Yetzirah. I can take good information from the Nag Hammadi scripts. I can put it all together. I can keep going if I were you. I can keep going. The difference between being super intelligent and being ignorant is your ability to take information from multiple sources and connect the dots, but also to know and discern what to utilize and what to discard. That's what makes you super intelligent. Literally. When you get to that level, it's a high level. It don't mean you fully made it, because I didn't fully make it yet. But I'll tell you what, I'm on my damn way. Learning is a lifelong process, but you got to be able to connect the dots. And I'm going to tell you something. There's good information in this book. Don't get me wrong now. Don't get me twisted. There's good information in that book that you can apply to your life. And if you apply some of those things to your life, you're going to get a good result. Period. It's a fact. Not all of it's trash. A lot of it's just remixed ancient text. But there's good information that you can actually utilize and apply in your life in that Bible. Quran as well. Nag Hammadi scriptures as well. I mean, I can keep going on and on and on. I have over 1,500 books in this house alone. And I know what's in every single book. You got to take time and energy to put into the things that are important. Everyone does that for whatever's important to them. For me, the knowledge is what's important to me. That's what's important to me, the knowledge. And understanding how I can apply it and how I can actually use it. That's what's important to me. You see? That's what's important to me.
Now, Aura monitors the dark web as well. That way, if any of your logins or passwords are compromised on there, they let you know so that you can go and get them changed before the wrong people get a hold of them. They also have
Does the Book of Enoch hold in terms of relevance for our life and our world today?
Well, let me first say that the feeling is mutual. I've been watching your podcast with great interest. I think, I have to tell you, for some years now, I've been waiting for a new generation of competent ufologists to arise, because I'm an OG guy. I like to follow the OG ufological stuff. And I feel like there's a lot of noise out there now. There's a lot of people who sort of just come into ufology fresh from zero. And suddenly you have an overabundance of experts saturating social media. But there are a few people who truly have deeply familiarized themselves with the body of material that creates the substrate of what we know in ufology. And man, you've mastered it. And I want to say, well done. I mean, I'm very encouraged to see what you're doing. And you and people like, what is it, UFO Gerb?
Yeah, UAP Gerb.
UAP Gerb.
He's amazing.
You guys are just awesome. And it's encouraging to see a new generation of ufologists who know their stuff. So,
I partially accept that compliment. Thank you. That's really nice of you. I'm bad with compliments, but I think, it's funny how much, as you go deeper, and you probably know this too, the more you know, in some ways, the less you know, and the greater the surface area of your questions. And so,
it's important to have that foundation, though.
Yes.
Because as I said, so many people are coming into the topic brand new, and they're disregarding the body of knowledge that's already been accumulated over decades.
Yes.
And it's, like I said, I'm just going to say it again, it's so encouraging to see you and other young guys who are first establishing that foundation, understanding familiarizing yourself, as I said, with the excellent research that's come before us.
Absolutely. And I've seen you do stuff with Richard Dolan and yourself. You have amazing research in this field. And I think we're standing on the shoulders of giants. So
precisely,
we're very lucky. And there's a long, rich history here. And I think if anything, what I can relay is just going through it with like earnest and like normal kind of epistemics. Like,
yeah, that's right.
I don't know. And just being an audience surrogate and sort of having the conversations and doing it in like an intellectually rigorous and honest way. And that's all you kind of can do in this field.
Well, you do it very well. You do it very well. So
thank you.
In regard to the Book of Enoch, Enoch provides the foundation for Hebrew cosmology as it pertains to the antediluvian world. So you cannot separate what I call the Enochian narrative or the Enochic tradition. You cannot separate that out from the biblical narrative. It is fundamental to how the ancient Hebrews viewed the antediluvian world, the world before the flood. And not only is it the ancient Hebraic view, it's the view of our antecedents across the board. The ancient Egyptians, the Mesopotamians, the Greeks, the Romans, they all viewed the antediluvian world in a particular way, namely that it was a time of great learning. It's a time when the fundamentals of civilization were imparted to mankind from extraterrestrial entities. And in the pagan world, and pagan just means everybody but the Hebrews, in the pagan world, this was known as the Golden Age, or Zeptepi to the ancient Egyptians. And it was a time when the gods commingled with mankind, literally. They procreated with human women. They progenerated a race of hybrid demigods in the earth. In many accounts, these demigods were giants, such as in the biblical account and the ancient Mesopotamian account, the Epic of Gilgamesh. Gilgamesh himself was a giant. And so these traditions are ubiquitous across the earth. And this is how civilization began in the minds of our antecedents. Again, whether it be the Hebrew account, the Judeo-Christian account, or the pagan accounts. Now, among the Jews, there was no greater prophet and scribe. And these are important terms, prophet and scribe, than Enoch. Enoch was the greatest pre-flood patriarch. He was revered above all others. And the Bible says very little about Enoch. It says that he walked with God for 365 years, and then God took him. And that's pretty much all the Bible says of Enoch. And there's a couple of references in the New Testament. but it always was strange to me as I was a teenager, thinking and reading the scant information provided in the biblical text concerning Enoch, who clearly was the greatest pre-flood patriarch. The Bible has much to say about its other prophets and scribes. The Bible says a whole lot about Moses. It says a whole lot about Elijah. It says a whole lot about Noah. It says almost nothing about Enoch. And it occurred to me when I was probably, I think I was 16 years old. I just had gotten my driver's license, and my father was a pastor, so I grew up in a very, very good home. I had a very, very good upbringing. My dad was an excellent father and pastor, and I had a wonderful mother. My mother died when I was 14. But I remember when I was 16 years old, I drove to Borders. That's the one that went out of business, right? Borders.
Yeah, Borders.
I drove to a Borders bookstore, and I remember I was perusing the aisles, just sort of wanted to buy a book, and I was particularly interested in the Pseudepigrapha. And I pulled the Pseudepigrapha off the shelf. It was this big, ancient-looking book that they had there in Borders. And I was most interested in the Book of Enoch. I'd heard about the Book of Enoch, and I didn't really know what it was. And so I remember pulling it off the shelf and sitting down on a bench in Borders and opening it up and sort of skimming through the Book of Enoch. I was instantly captivated. And I bought it and I took it home. And that sort of began my fascination with the antediluvian world. Because what the Book of Enoch does is it provides, as I said earlier, it provides the foundation of Hebrew cosmology in regard to the antediluvian world. And I remember reading, when I was a teenager, reading the verses in Genesis 6, those enigmatic verses inscribed in Genesis 6 about the sons of God who saw the daughters of men, that they were beautiful, and they came down and they took wives of all whom they chose. And they copulated with these women and progenerated a race of giants in the earth called the Nephilim. But that was it. Just this little footnote. It is a bizarre digression in the Genesis narrative. And this precedes the flood. The next chapter is the flood. And then you get to the New Testament and you see Peter referencing the angels who sinned, and as a result are chained in the gloomy abyss, Tartarus. Jude takes verbatim from the Book of Enoch. He copies and pastes into his epistle a few verses straight out of First Enoch, and it's the same sort of it comes from the Book of the Watchers. And the Book of the Watchers in First Enoch is the story of the descent of these beings, of these heavenly beings, these celestial beings. And you realize when you read the Book of Enoch that the reference in Genesis 6 is an abridged version. It's just an abridged. It's a cliff note, basically, of a story that was clearly already well known by the audience. So the author of Genesis, when he inserts into Genesis 6, again, this bizarre digression of the Genesis narrative about these heavenly beings, the sons of God who descend and commingle with the daughters of men and copulate with them. The reason he doesn't expand on that story is because it was already well known from oral tradition, but I also think from written tradition, namely the Book of Enoch, or some version of the Book of Enoch. So the story was already so well known to the audience that the writer of Genesis, whether it was Moses or someone else, didn't need to retrace the details of this story. It was so well known. It was so essential to the fabric of their cosmology. And indeed, the Book of Enoch lays out this story. So what does it say? The Book of Enoch says that in the days of Jared, who was the sixth from Adam, Jared was the father of Enoch, that these heavenly beings, which the Book of Enoch denominates as watchers, and the watcher denomination is not exclusive to extra-biblical texts. It's in the Bible. It's in the Book of Daniel. That these beings called the watchers, 200 of them, decided that they were going to descend to the earth, or maybe they were already on the earth, but that they were going to wanted to take wives from the daughters of men. They wanted to wed the maidens, the daughters of Adam, because they were beautiful, and they wanted to procreate with them, and they wanted to essentially to make families, to sire offspring. And these watchers knew, these 200 watchers knew that this was a grave transgression. And so before they did this thing, they bound themselves on the summit of Mount Hermon. According to the Book of Enoch, they descended on the summit of Mount Hermon. And they bound themselves by an oath of mutual imprecations. In other words, we're all in this together, and we're all going to suffer the consequences, whatever befall. So they bind themselves with an oath, and that's why to this day, Mount Hermon is known as the Mountain of Oath. And so after binding themselves by an oath of mutual imprecations, they descend into the plains, they choose for themselves wives, and then they make a transaction, I believe, with the fathers of these maidens. A dowry of sorts is paid. They provide, the fathers provide their daughter's hand in marriage, the maidens, and the watchers in turn, as a dowry. Remember, this is a very patriarchal society in the pre-flood world. The fathers give their daughter's hand away. It's not like today where, it's mutual agreement, let's get married. In the antediluvian world, and even in the ancient post-diluvian world, and still is the case in some parts of the earth, the father gives the daughter's hand in marriage in exchange for something, a dowry. And so the watchers received the daughter's hands in marriage from the fathers, and they in turn gave the fathers information, knowledge, forbidden knowledge. Book of Enoch says they gave them the knowledge that the men were striving to learn. And I think this was technological knowledge, what we would call today scientific knowledge. And then the watchers, just as it says in Genesis 6, they copulate with their wives, who conceive and give birth to a race of giants called the Nephilim. And then what results is men are corrupted by the forbidden knowledge of the watchers. The giants grow to an enormous size and ultimately begin to consume all of the acquisitions of the land, so that men can no longer sustain their appetites. So human beings were basically subjugated to this hybrid race of giants, and they were spending all of their time and energy feeding them. And when they could no longer satisfy their enormous appetites, the giants began to devour mankind. And it's at this point that men begin to cry out to God, and the court of heaven hears the appeal of mankind, and God dispatches some angels to the earth. He binds the watchers. But by the way, I should say, nobody knows the duration of time from when the watchers descended in the days of Jared to the flood of Noah. At the very least, you're looking at hundreds of years, if not thousands of years, of this going on planet Earth. And then, so the watchers are dispatched. The angels are dispatched to the earth. They bind the watchers. But before the watchers are incarcerated in the abyss, they're forced to watch the destruction of their beloved sons, of the giants, who are incited to war with one another. So you have this fratricidal war that takes place among the giants. And I describe this as the empire of the gods, because it's not like, big dumb giants from Disney movies when we were growing up, bashing each other over the head with clubs. These were exceptionally intelligent beings. Their fathers, the Book of Enoch says, taught them and their wives. They instructed them in their knowledge. So they were receiving the instruction of their fathers. So these were very, very intelligent beings, probably in possession of what I would describe as advanced technology, maybe even advanced aerospace technology, which I do believe existed in the antediluvian world. I think that's how the watchers got to the summit of Mount Hermon, by the way, at the helms of advanced aerospace vehicles, what we would describe today as UFOs. And so, to close out this story, the watchers, the giants go to war with each other. I believe this is a technological war. And then the flood ensues, the great flood. And the flood was intended to cleanse the earth of the abominable seed of the watchers. and to reset mankind. So that's an encapsulation, a summarization of what the first section of the Book of Watchers describes. Rather, the Book of Enoch, called the Book of Watchers.
It's a great summary. If I were a biblical scholar, would I have any points around the Book of Enoch to say that it's just apocryphal and it's not connected to the Bible? And what would you say to those points?
Well, nearly all scholars agree that the Book of Enoch provides the cosmological substrate for the ancient Hebrews. There's no doubt about that. I mean, the story is referenced indirectly in the Old Testament, obviously Genesis 6 and in other portions, but also in the New Testament. In fact, when you get to the New Testament, you find Jesus of Nazareth using a title, a very specific title, the title he preferred more than any other. It's a messianic title, but it doesn't come from the Old Testament. It comes exclusively from the Book of Enoch. And that title is the Son of Man. Now, there are several titles that Jesus could have employed when referencing himself, messianic titles. And he did use various titles, the Son of God, for example, which he was. But he uses the Son of Man the most. And there is no reference. That is a proper title, the Son of Man. So the only reference in the Old Testament that scholars will go to is a reference in the book of Daniel, where Daniel sees one like a son of man. But that is a descriptor. That is saying, like, I saw one who looked like a human being, like an offspring of Adam. It's not a proper title. The proper title, the Son of Man, comes from First Enoch, specifically from the second section of First Enoch, which is called the Parables. And the Parables are the oracles of Enoch. And the oracles of Enoch pertain primarily to the Son of Man, and were clearly fulfilled in Jesus of Nazareth. Now, there is some dispute in regard to when the parables were authored or compiled. The Book of Enoch, first of all, the Book of Enoch is a compilation of texts with several authors, and the various sections of Enoch were probably written at different periods of time. The oldest section, namely the Book of the Watchers, containing the Enochian tale of the Watchers, that was written at least circa 300 BC. But I think that the oral tradition, at least, is way older. I think it's began with Enoch. And in fact, the Hebrews believed that Enoch was the inventor of writing, that he was the first to write. And remember, Enoch was revered as a prophet and a scribe, so he prophesied and he wrote. And tradition says that those writings were delivered ultimately to Noah and preserved through the flood. So is it possible that portions of First Enoch actually originate thousands of years ago? Maybe the very first writing ever conceived by the human species was written by the hand of Enoch. And that's why the contention here is, mostly from the secular world, that the Bible is, all of the stories in the Bible are just copies of the more ancient Mesopotamian texts. Well, sure, but what if the foundation for those stories goes all the way back to Enoch? Then everybody's copying Enoch. Then everybody has a version of what Enoch wrote.
Right.
And it's very possible in my mind that the Hebrews have the most faithful rendition of what was, of the oral traditions and in fact of the written compositions that came from the antediluvian world, which far predate the ancient Mesopotamians.
And Enoch was related to Noah, is that right?
Yes. Yes. I believe Enoch was his great-great-grandfather. Enoch was the father of Methuselah, who was the father of Lamech, who was the father of Noah.
Interesting. And yeah, in the Old Testament, you have the Methuselah, a lot of these guys lived for very long periods as well, which I think caused you to ask all sorts of
900 plus years.
That's right. Yeah, it's so fascinating. Yeah. How is it found? How is the Book of Enoch discovered?
The Book of Enoch was preserved by the Ethiopians. And had the Ethiopians not preserved the Book of Enoch, we would not have it to this day, because it was clearly expunged from the scriptoriums of the Middle East and the West. There was controversy, a lot of controversy in the early church age over the Book of Enoch. Some of the early church fathers wanted to incorporate it into the canon. So there was a debate, an ongoing debate, that what cannot be denied is that the Book of Enoch is that the early church was conversant with what we call First Enoch today. Now, there's clearly a different manuscript in circulation because some of the early church fathers cite the Book of Enoch, and they're citing portions of the Book of Enoch, which we don't have today.
Interesting.
In what we call First Enoch. But then they also cite portions which we do. So some of these early church fathers reference the Book of Enoch as scripture. In fact, around the 4th century AD, the Tawahedo Orthodox Christians and the Beta Israel Jewish community in Ethiopia incorporated the Book of Enoch into their canon. That's why they preserved it. So to this day, if you visit Ethiopia and you visit a synagogue or you visit an Orthodox church, among the scriptures that we have in our canon in the West, you'll find the Book of Enoch and some other apocryphal works as well. They revered the Book of Enoch, and so they preserved it. So, but as I said, the early church was undoubtedly conversant with portions of what we call today First Enoch. And what I was going to say before was you have the Book of Enoch attested in the Old and New Testament. And when you read the parables, the oracles of Enoch, which are primarily prophecies pertaining to the Messiah, to the Christ, again, fulfilled in Jesus of Nazareth, clearly, you realize that the writers of the New Testament derived much of their eschatology and Christology, their theology regarding the Messiah, directly from the oracles of Enoch. And in fact, there are citations throughout the New Testament that are not found in the Old Testament. References, indirect references that are only to be found in the Book of Enoch. So so scholars will say, it's divided. The scholarly community, there's lots of difference in opinions there in regard to the Book of Enoch. They all will concede that the earliest portions of Enoch were compiled around 300 BC. Some scholars will say that the parables, again containing those messianic prophecies, were compiled sometime around 100 AD. There's a lot of debate about that, but precisely because it's apparent that the authors of the New Testament are deriving so much of their theology from the parables of Enoch, and so it's hard for some scholars to believe that these prophecies, which are so astonishingly accurate, clearly fulfilled, as I keep saying, in Jesus of Nazareth, that those could have been written before the advent of Christ. I believe they were. I believe that the oracles of Enoch are ancient, that First Enoch, that the earliest portions of First Enoch, namely the Book of the Watchers, and the oracles of Enoch were written by his hand. Or some version of them, carried through the flood in the form of oral tradition at the very least, and then someone later compiled them. So those are
fascinating.
Some of the contentions, and I should mention that there is one of the primary contentions against the Book of Enoch in the Christian community is the definitive translation of the Book of Enoch from the Gies. By the way, so I guess I should back up. So in 1776, James Bruce of Kennard, who by the way was a collateral relative of Robert the Bruce. The famous Scot, right, who freed the Scots from the English. James Bruce of Kennard also happened to be a Freemason of one of the most influential and oldest.
The Kilwinning Lodge?
That's right, number 2. That meets to this day in the historic Chapel of St. John. He went on this very daring mission to Ethiopia And it was daring because you'll recall back at that time, 1700s, late 1700s, mid to late 1700s, there was the scourge of the Barbary pirates in the Mediterranean, and they were taking a lot of Europeans captive and enslaving them. It was just that enslavement was awful. I mean, most of the men, were castrated and then relegated to live out the rest of their lives in the what do you call it, the belly of the ships.
Oh yeah,
sure. Or whatever that's called, where they would be chained to the rows, to the oars, and they would have to basically just row for the rest of their lives in absolute misery. James Bruce sailed into this very dangerous situation. He made it through, and his mission was to try and find the source of the Blue Nile, ostensibly. I think he had a different mission. Probably, very likely in my estimation, was sent by the lodge. James Bruce of Kennard was brilliant, and he was also unusually tall. He was like 6'6", if I remember. He was very, very tall. Very brilliant man. And he went to Ethiopia, made it to Ethiopia. He did find the source of the Blue Nile. And while he was in Ethiopia, he also discovered, and maybe this was his mission, three manuscripts he procured 3 manuscripts of the Book of Enoch, what we call today First Enoch, which, as I said earlier, had been preserved by the Ethiopians. And they were written in the liturgical language of Ethiopia, which is called Ge'ez, or Ge'ez, depending on how you pronounce it. And so, by the way, I should, as an insert here, I think his primary mission was to find or to seek out the Ark of the Covenant. I think that was his primary mission. Graham Hancock wrote a really, really good book called The Sign and the Seal, where he talks about the Ark of the Covenant being probably concealed in Ethiopia.
In Aksum, right?
That's right, in Aksum, at the Church of St. Mary, I believe. Really great, well-written book. And
could still be there to this day.
To this day, yeah. The late Chuck Missler believes that the Ark of the Covenant was in fact in Ethiopian Aksum as well. Wow. So I tend to think there's a very strong indication that is in fact where it is. But James Bruce, he didn't find the Ark, but he did come back to Europe with 3 copies of the Book of Enoch written in Ge'ez, and he gave one to the King of France. He entrusted one to the Bodleian Library at Oxford, and then the final copy he took back with himself to Scotland. Probably, I would guess he entrusted it to the lodge, to the Freemasonic Lodge in which he was inducted. And so the problem was that it was written in Ge'ez, and hardly anybody read Ge'ez. But eventually, in the early 1900s, R.H. Charles, the Anglican scholar R.H. Charles, translated the Book of Enoch written in Ge'ez, First Enoch, into English, and he created there was a previous translation, I believe, by a gentleman named Lawrence, but it had some problems. So R.H. Charles translated that. He created the definitive translation of the Book of Enoch, which is what most of us read today, which is what my Book of Enoch is, a translation from R.H. Charles. And the reason why I'm going through all of this is because, going back to one of the primary contentions today that you'll find in the Christian community against the authenticity of the Book of Enoch is found, I believe it's in verse 71 or chapter 71 of First Enoch. It's at the end of the parables, in which and in the parables, Enoch is dreaming. He's dreaming, and he's being escorted through the heavens by an angel, and he's being shown basically what is being revealed to Enoch is the gospel of Christ that is unfolded in the New Testament. Messianic content, right? So he sees the Son of Man, again, the Son of Man, proper title, walking with the head of days, very reminiscent of Daniel's vision of one like the Son of Man. And Enoch sees this Son of Man, and he learns about him from the angel that this Son of Man was hidden from the foundation of the world, and that and that he would be a staff to the righteous on which they would stay themselves, that in his name they would be saved. I mean, these are doctrines of the New Testament that appear in the Book of Enoch, in the oracles of Enoch, and all kinds of messianic content, prophetic content. And in fact, Enoch was told that this Son of Man would be the great judge of the earth, that he would return at the end of the age to judge the world, the living and the dead, and so many other theological principles that become foundational to the doctrines of the writers of the New Testament. And so when you get to the end of the parables, as I say, I think it's in chapter 71, in the Gies, there's a verse that says the angels, so Enoch's having one of these messianic visions in a dream, and the angel is showing him the Son of Man and telling him about him. And in the Gies, the angel says, "You, O Enoch, are that Son of Man." And then the angel proceeds to add some more prophetic color to that statement. And so scholars say, the messianic content in the parables is referring to Enoch, not to Christ. And so they crumple it up and throw it in the garbage. And I actually think that that's absurd because of two reasons. Number one, because it's clear that Enoch is not the Son of Man, that Enoch is having a vision of the Messiah, of the Son of God, who would come into the world and who ultimately would be the judge of the world at the end of the age. And it was not himself. He's not having a vision of himself, clearly. So the context is extremely important. And then secondarily, R.H. Charles recognized that this must have been a mistranslation from the Gies, because the Book of Enoch was not originally written in Gies. Most scholars believe there's either an Aramaic original or a Hebrew original, right? And certainly it was translated into Greek, because we have Greek fragments from various places. In fact, the Book of Enoch, by the way, was found among the Dead Sea Scrolls, Greek fragments of it. And it confirms the Gies translation. It comports. So R.H. Charles, being the excellent scholar that he was, recognized that based on the context of all the messianic content, the visions of the Son of Man, that clearly this is a mistranslation. So he corrected it. He put a footnote. He corrected it in his version. Instead of it saying, "You, O Enoch," he renders it, "This is that Son of Man." And then it proceeds to recognize that Son of Man in regard to the prophecies that follow. And that is the correct translation. And so that's a lot of people who are, that's where a lot of the controversy comes from. So a lot of these people out there who want to discredit the Book of Enoch, they use that verse to just completely trash the whole thing, which I think is misguided.
So well said. I think it's also fascinating that Enoch is sort of an offshoot of the Old Testament. Is that right? So this was pre-Christ, that it was likely written in
certainly
your estimation?
The earliest portions of Enoch, the Book of the Watchers, the earliest portion of Enoch, the Book of the Watchers, definitely written long before Christ. So at least 300 years before Christ.
So sort of predictive of Christ too, if it's
the Book of Enoch.
Well,
yes, because within the Book of the Watchers, again, the first section and oldest section of the Book of Enoch, there is messianic content there as well. In fact, this is part of the prophecy that was copied and pasted in the Book of Jude in the New Testament, was regarding the judgment of the ungodly. And who's the judge? Well, the Son of Man is the judge. He will be the judge of the ungodly at the end of the age. So yes, the Book of the Watchers does contain messianic content, but the bulk of the messianic content is in the next section, which is the Book of Parables. That's the one where scholars are divided. Some believe it's very old. Some believe it was written somewhere around 100 AD. Again, because it's so foundational to the doctrines of the New Testament as articulated by the apostles of Christ.
Coffee. Follow me.